have Ben Young that's going to be speaking next. So I'm going to briefly read his bio. Ben really needs no introduction at all. He's a great guy. Did he disappear on us? Where'd he go? Oh, he slipped out. So I guess he's going to slip back in. Thank you so much. Yeah. Is he coming? All right, I'll read the bio while he's out. Ben is a client relations executive for SBS. Ben has a diverse background at ADP, which includes experience in implementation, NAS, ADP resource control, and client loyalty. He started as an implementation manager for the SBS Net Center in Alpharetta, and moved on to stints as a NAS service team lead and implementation project manager at ADP Resource. He left ADP for about 2 years to take on the newly created major market implementation team at BB&T. Prior to rejoining ADP when he acquired that business. As a key member of the SBS South Region's management team, he led control, client loyalty, and amendments. Among his many accomplishments, Ben has been awarded 2 SBS South MVP awards as a top manager in the region. Nice. Supported SBS's first Six Sigma green belt, so he knows a little karate. Ben has a BS in film as well, so any actors out there, television and media, from San Diego State University, so he knows how to serve. He's also married as well to his wife, Monica, and 4 children, Jaden, Cameron, Sanaa, and Arella. I think I pronounced that correct. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Everyone, nice round of applause. It's Ben Young. Oh, I can do either one. I don't know which one's better. Hello? Okay. Hello. All right. You're going to run the clicks? Okay, cool. All right, so this is about how to climb the corporate ladder without climbing the corporate ladder. So if you guys think back to the old school days, you had companies, everyone knows the story of like the guy who works in the mailroom and he works his way up to the corner office, right? And it's always about, you have this vertical path, right? But as times have evolved and as businesses like ADP have diversified, one business is now many business units, a couple of departments is now hundreds of departments, so now there's more opportunity to actually move laterally to move up the ladder. So I think Jay-Z says 40 is the new 30. Well, lateral is the new up. So go back to the, I'm sorry. So these are just 4 words. All right, you can go next slide. So this is an example. This is like the generic ADP ladder, right? So you start out, most of us start out as an individual contributor, meaning you have no direct reports. And then you move up to manager, so on and so forth. That's like the vertical path you would take. What I'm suggesting is if you look at the x-axis where you have experience and knowledge, you can move towards your goal, right, to get to the other side of the chart without necessarily moving up. So it's a combination of the two, right? You move sideways and then you move up, you move sideways, so it's kind of like a step instead of just a ladder straight up. Okay, you can go next slide. So this is how it probably more realistically looks to most people. And this is a level of frustration also for most people because they assume that it should look like the prior slide where you're going more of a ladder, where realistically, especially when you start out in your career, it's a lot more lateral movements, right? So if you look here, this person, I don't have a name for him, but this person is moving towards their goal. They're just moving laterally, right? So they're still gaining knowledge and experience. Each time you get a new job or you work a new business unit, you're gaining knowledge and experience, even though you're not necessarily getting a promotion for like a new job or a new title, right? And then when you get to that point where you amass all this experience and knowledge, then you can make a bigger jump upwards. Yeah. So this is an example of someone who had a misstep in his career, right? So he started out doing well, and then maybe he got a demotion. And the thing I want to point out here is that even if you get a demotion, it's not, you're still gaining experience and knowledge, right? So there's no, as long as you're still learning new things, right, and getting more skills and getting more connections, you're still moving in the right direction. Even if you go down vertically, you're still going across horizontally. So I think someone said failure is the mother of success. I don't know who the baby daddy is, but I think it still applies. Go ahead. So this is what my ladder would look like. So this is kind of how I've had my career up to this point. So it's going to look like an MC Escher painting, where it's just like old times of crazy staircases, but the point is that you want to just keep going in that direction. Whether it be up or out, you want to keep moving that way. You don't want to be stagnant in any type of role. Go ahead. All right. Do you have the sound up to? Okay. Cool. So these next few slides are pretty controversial. If I would have known that Rita would have been in here, I might have not had these slides in here. It's too late now. I'm like the opening act for Beyonce, and everyone's like, when's Beyonce on? So we'll try to get through this quickly. All right, go ahead in this one. All right, so you have zero ultimate control over your movement up the ladder. You can only control going down. So the key here is ultimate control. Everyone has some level of control, but ultimately, everyone is 100% dependent on someone else, giving them the opportunity to get to the next step. You can't give yourself a promotion. Even if you have your own business, you can't give yourself a loan. If you're always dependent on someone else to get where you want to get in your career. So I'll give you a few examples to kind of prove that out. So, when you're a kid, everyone's, has the old, what do you want to be when you grow up question. So if you had complete control over what you wanted to be when you grew up, there would be a lot more veterinarians, there would be a lot more video game designers, I would be Steph Curry, Eddie would be Denzel, and there'd be like 10,000 presidents, right? So obviously, you have to get to that point where you're dependent on other people to give you that opportunity to really be what you want to be. And for most people, that doesn't happen. I'll go back, I'm sorry. So, anyone know who this is?
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. So he was the #1 pick in this year's NFL draft. So he, from a performance perspective, if you equate to ADP, his performance was like off the charts, right? Like everyone kind of assumed he would be the first pick. But even with all of that, he couldn't just step up to the podium and say, I'm the #1 pick and here's my contract I'm signing. He had to rely on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to actually believe that he was as good as his performance was showing and actually give him a shot to make him the #1 pick. So we still had to go through the interview process and all the other kind of stuff to prove out what most of us would assume. So his performance, he could only go so far with that, right? On the flip side, you have Joe Montana. You can see by his 4 reigns, most people, or some people, consider him like the greatest quarterback of all time. If you ask my dad, he'll probably throw a punch if you say he wasn't the best quarterback of all time. He's a huge 49ers fan. But he was the 82nd pick in that year's draft. So his performance was less of a factor. There was 81 people who the decision makers thought were better than him. And they were all wrong because there was no one in that draft that was better than him ultimately. But it kind of proves to show that there's nothing Joe Montana could have done to make himself the #1 pick. He had to rely on someone to believe he was the #1 pick.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
So the point there is that even though you have no control, you still have to play to win the game, right? You can't just sit there and say, well, I have no control over my career, so I'm just going to just do whatever because it's not up to me anyways. You still have to play the game if you want to win. You don't just play it to play it. You have to play to win the game. So everyone's heard of the Lion King, right? And this is the circle of life, right? And now we have circle of trust. So
Yeah, I think I got it.
we have one of my prior GMs. He introduced me to a concept called the circle of influence, which is basically the people who will ultimately decide your career is that circle of influence. So the goal is to get that circle as big as possible and actually be inside the circle, but have that circle as big as possible. So you have as many people, influential people, that are connected to you, so that when opportunity does come, you'll have a better chance of being able to take advantage of it. So I'll go through, and then really all that boils down to, the buzzword for that is branding. So it really comes down to perfecting your brand so that you can increase that circle. So for branding, there's 3 steps, right? You have to have influential people that know who you are. So that's the, that's getting yourself out there. That's making connections. It's doing volunteer things. It's being part of committees. It's volunteering for stretch assignments, those kind of things, right? Just getting your name out there. It's also, by the way, being a good performer, because high performers, people find out who those people are, and they know those names will keep popping up when we're in senior leadership conversations and we have to get a volunteer for something. The high pos will be the names that will be top of mind that will suggest. They have to like you. So I know a lot of people. I don't like everyone that I know, right? So I have to not only know you, but I have to like you. So that's a key. You can control if I know you, but you can't control if I like you, right? So you have to really work on what's called your likability, right? If the Gallup, everyone knows the Gallup poll, right? Since 1960, they've been doing analysis on the presidential election, trying to analyze what kind of predictors they can have to determine who the next president will be. And since 1960, they analyzed, what issues they ran on, where they're from geographically, what party affiliation. And there's only one thing that's consistent from 1960 till now, and that was the person with the highest likability was the person that was elected. So it kind of proves that out. So they have to know you, they have to like you, then they have to want to promote you. So that's the third tier of it. I like a lot of people. I wouldn't want them all to be promoted under me, right? Because promoting someone, now you're actually putting your name out for somebody. You're actually like saying, this person is connected to me, and I'm kind of, riding along with this person. If they fail, then it's going to look bad on me. So it's another level of not just liking someone, but actually thinking that person will be successful in the role that you would pick them for. So now we're at bending. So all I want to say about bending is, you have your path, right? You have your point A, your point B. You just have to be willing to change that around, because things are going to come at you because it's not in your control, right? Opportunities may come that may not be in your plan, but you have to be willing to kind of take a detour. Again, as long as you're still gaining experience and knowledge, you're still going in the right direction. So you have to just be flexible that way. The other piece of this is that advice is just advice. So a lot of people are big on mentors and coaching, that kind of stuff, which is all very good. You just have to consider that when someone's giving you that advice, like, that's all it is. I can guarantee you that the advice I would give you would be very different from the advice Eddie would give you, but they're both valuable pieces of advice. It's based on our own individual experiences and how we got to the place that we got. And so you got to take that and then adapt it to how you are and what you're trying to obtain and what matches, your skill set. So in a nutshell, it comes down to, again, playing the game. It's kind of like a game of chess. And the most important piece to be a good player, I think, is what's called EQ. So you have IQ, which is, how smart you are, essentially, and then EQ, which is emotional intelligence. And that's basically your ability to perceive, control, evaluate emotions, both of yourself and other people. Some people will call it like business maturity. There's different words for it, but it's basically that's like the skill level you have to play the game of building your career. So it's, it goes back to your integrity, your work ethic, your likability again, different things, your charisma, your confidence, all those things play a role in how well you're able to build that circle of influence. Okay. So I'll end with a couple of quotes that have helped me in my career. Now this one is it helps, because I guess the big question is, so if career growth is so dependent in nature, right? How do you really guide or build or drive your career? So really it's convincing others that you'll be successful in that role. The catch-22 is that if you're not in that role, how do you convince someone that you'll be successful in that role unless you're in that role, right? And so that's always like the thing I keep hearing. Like, how do you know I'm not going to be a good manager because I'm not a manager to show you I'm a good manager? So what a lot of decision makers look at are these things. It's using the greatness in you. So you have to emote high potential. Like there's something bigger. Like people have to see there's something bigger that you can do than what you're currently doing. So it's using the greatness in you to achieve and sustain extraordinary outcomes. So it's being a high performer, right? Being really good at what you're doing. And then this is the key: engaging the greatness in others. So it's being able to impact people around you. So at any role, even as an individual contributor, you're able, if you have that in you, you're able to not only make yourself a high performer, but you're able to share best practices, help mentor, do peer coaching to help other people around you be better than they would be if you weren't around them, right? The second quote. So this is from Conan O'Brien. If you guys remember, a few years ago, he was given the Tonight Show, which is like, the holy mecca of talk shows. And then like 6 months later, he got kicked out, right? Because Jay Leno wanted it back. So on his last show, he had this whole like ending monologue thing. And this is what he ended with. And this always kind of stuck with me. And nobody in life gets exactly what they thought they were going to get. But if you work really hard and you're kind, amazing things will happen. So that kind of goes back to the whole topic of integrity and really, it's for lack of a better word, it's used in a bad way, but it's playing the game, right? It's working really hard, being nice to people, your likability, and things will happen. You're positioning yourself to grow your circle of influence, and that will be the ultimate driver in your career. And that you have 100% control over. So, that's it.
When I grow up, I want to be Ben Young. Let's give him another round of applause, please.